Hello there, my name is Martin Henley. This is the Effective Marketing YouTube channel. If you've spent a second here, you will know that I'm on a mission to give you everything you need to be successful in your business. And as far as I know, as far as I am aware, as far as my experience takes me, the only way for you to be effective, successful in your business is to be more successful and effective with your marketing. So here I am giving you everything I know about sales and marketing. Every other week we bring you the marketing news. I react to great content or terrible content that I find online. And occasionally, more often than not, I drag in whoever I can find who has experience that I think will be useful to you if you are looking to be more successful in your business. Now, you can support us in this endeavor by watching this video through, by liking it, sharing, commenting, by taking some value from it, by implementing that value, by letting us know that this is interesting and useful to you. And if you could do all of those things, that would be absolutely fantastic. So today's guest is a business, marketing, computer science, and maths graduate. He has sales and marketing experience going back to 2004 when he was involved in selling advertising or providing advertising. He has digital experience going back to 2006. Since then, in the meantime, he has run email marketing and digital marketing agencies. He is a founding member of the Face of Entrepreneurs, a non-profit networking community, and community consultant with SnapPoll, which is what we are going to be speaking about today. Interestingly, between 1990 and 1995, he wanted to be as good a drummer as Ricky Rocket and as good a guitarist as Joe Satriani. Imagine if he had only focused what might have happened. Today's guest is Ranil Rajapaksha. Good afternoon, Ranil.
Hello, Martin. My goodness, what an awesome introduction. Thank you so much.
That's okay. It takes me about 12 and a half minutes to do that.
Nah, it's brilliant. I love it. Thank you.
Cool. How are
How
you
you
doing today,
doing?
man? In chilly Melbourne.
Chilly Melbourne. Yes, it's a gray day outside. It is Melbourne. You know, four seasons in one day, but we push on. We push
Yeah.
on.
So I've just told you about this lie that they tell us it's hot in Africa, it's hot in Australia. But thinking more about it, they perpetuate that lie. They don't just tell us that lie, they perpetuate that lie because there was never a grey day in Neighbours, was there? Neighbours was happening in Melbourne.
And Melbourne, yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, it's a good
Never.
point.
There was
It is a
never a
day,
grey day in Neighbours. So
and
this is the investment. This is what the
this is the
establishment. This is
lie.
the investment they're prepared to make in perpetuating these lies that it's hot in Australia. So it's not just
And
an
funnily enough,
incidental.
Martin, the last time I actually saw Neighbours was probably 2004. So yeah, I'm trying to recollect the outdoor scenes there. But yeah, there were sunny days. So
It was
not sure.
only sunny days, I'm sure. I mean, I don't think I've seen it since in this millennia, let's say. Let's hope I haven't. But I'm sure it was only sunny days. Only sunny days. But the thing is, it's grey everywhere occasionally, isn't it? That's the truth. Let's talk about your failed rock career.
Shall we go there? Well, it's not finished yet.
You haven't finished failing.
Might be revived very soon. No, so are you talking about the musical stuff? Is
I'm
that what?
talking about I know that you're a really keen guitarist still, and you wanted to be a drummer, but why didn't you just focus on drumming or guitaring?
That's the problem with creative minds. You know, I
Okay.
just wanted to get my hands on as many instruments as possible and try and nail it. So the only ones I didn't really nail were the instruments, wind instruments. Sorry, but other than that, I can kind of get along with most other instruments if you just get music. You
Yes.
understand how it works. So yeah.
Yeah. There's a guitar up behind me, but it's mainly for backdrop, and when people come round, they play it occasionally. I want to be good at an instrument, but I'm just not. I think that's a gift that parents give you, making you do or encouraging you to do or supporting you to do musical instruments. I think that's a really valuable gift that some parents give.
Yeah, it's something that my dad told me when I was really young, and he said one of the things they can't take away from you is skills, your
Yes.
skill set, and that's where it came to music. And he said, they can put you in jail, but after you come out, you can still play the guitar.
Yes.
And that's why I've always got a guitar, literally, very, very close by everywhere I am. So yeah, it's good advice.
Fantastic. That's really good advice. Or if you go to jail, you might be able to sneak in a harmonica or something. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
That'll be good.
or you could play
Yeah.
like the pots or something. Good. To bring this back on track a little bit, I think you're the 57th or 58th person that I've interviewed now as part of this series. There is a theme running through this about marketing attracting or marketing people being creative people. So it seems like everyone has played in a
Yeah.
band or been a singer or done stand-up comedy or been a DJ or
Okay.
all of these things. So I don't know if there is something about creative people finding their way into sales and marketing careers. Now, what I definitely don't know, because I'm only interviewing sales and marketing people, is if this is just like everybody's creative. But it seems to be a theme.
Yeah, it might be also that I think marketing people have a lot of have thick skin, and I think you need that in marketing because not everything's going to work.
No.
And you know, it's understanding that it's a long journey and it's about test, all that kind of stuff. And I think that the challenge that we have these days is trying to then explain that to clients as well.
Yes.
Because, I think there's a preconceived notion in the world that there's a formula and just follow the formula and you'll be fine. Now that would have worked back, in the 80s or 90s, where you could, just run a TV ad or, a newspaper ad and you'd get noticed. That might be a little bit different today, you know. Actually, if you don't mind, I'll give you a perfect example of that, and I bring this up quite a lot. One of the most viewed videos still today, it's top 10 in YouTube, and it was number one for a few years since 2012. Was basically from a guy that had a very catchy song sung in a different language, not even in English, and he had a silly dance, and that was Gangnam Style.
Yes.
Psy. Now he didn't have an ad agency behind him. He didn't have a marketing team behind him. He just put out a catchy tune with a really silly video that ended up catching on. Now, what's the science behind that, right? So why aren't these people that know about viral videos and what consumers will want? Why aren't any of them in the top 10, top 20, top 50? So I think the secret sauce these days is something that we're always trying to explore and find out. Is there a formula? There's a broad brush formula, but I think it's again test and learn. Coming back to it, you need to have thick skin in order
Yes.
to take the failure, learn from it, and move on. So that's probably what it is.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you're right. I think there is a performative aspect to this where you have to kind of keep the show on the road until it's actually working. Do you know what I mean? You have to be able to, like you say, it is a process. It does take an amount of time, does take an amount of investment, and you kind of have to keep everyone happy while you're waiting for that success, I think. So I think there is a performative aspect to it. But I think there's a number of things. Like the DJ thing's interesting because a lot of people were marketing themselves as DJs and then were picked up as marketers, do you know what I mean? Because they were doing that effectively. So that's kind of interesting. But I think you kind of have to be, I think in 2022, you have to be part geek, part creative, part doer. Do you know what I mean? You kind of have to have a mix of those personalities. And that is what will make you an effective marketer. And I think you're right. You do need to have a hard skin. You are going to hit the road pretty hard occasionally. You have to have some bounce back ability. What's that called? Resolve or resilience? Resilience is the word. Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting. Cool. So today's conversation. There's only 5 questions. Do you know there's only 5 questions?
Yes.
Good. So the 5 questions are, we haven't really nailed down what your specialist subject is, but we know what it is. We just don't know what the keywords are. It's something about community insights, something about data insights, something about those things kind of sound, I don't want it to sound spooky. I don't want it to sound intrusive like Facebook. Do you know what I mean? But it's something, yeah. So you call yourself in your current role, community development consultant. So maybe it is community development. Okay, so we'll work it out in the fullness of time. Okay, so the
Absolutely.
5 questions, really simple. How are you qualified to talk to us about this thing? Is the question, whether it's community development, data insights, market insights, market development, whatever we decide it's going to be called. The second question then is, who do you work with? How do you add value to their lives? The third question is, let's call it community development. I think that's I've got a sense of what we're going to talk about. I think that's the most sensible description. So the third question then is, what is your recommendation for people who want to get better at community development? The fifth question is, what should people read? And no, that's the fourth question. The fifth question is, who can you throw under the bus who might enjoy or at least endure to have a conversation like this with me? I'll need 2 people from you. Okay, cool. So, question number 1, how are you qualified to talk to us about this community insights or community development thing that you're busy with? Maybe you should just tell us what it is and then we can get over ourselves.
Yeah, sure. So it's basically called Snap Poll, and as in a quick way of doing a poll. The company is only a year old, and I've been involved in it, from pretty much the start. It was an idea that came about in lockdown, when in Melbourne we're the most lockdown city in the world. I think we had 6 or 7 lockdowns, in the space of not a lot of time, and there were a lot of people, Martin, that were suffering. A lot of people that we knew that weren't doing too well. Unfortunately, the focus was looking this way, not much looking this way. And what we realized is people weren't being heard, essentially. And the role of government is to actually serve its people. The role of business is to serve its clients. What we thought was we had access to 6 million Australians. What can we do with that privilege? So we ran a couple of polls called Australia Has Spoken, in 2020, just for shits and giggles, really, just to see how it would work. And the response was phenomenal. So people were at home, and all of a sudden they were actually willing to speak up about whatever the topic was. We then fast forward to Snap Poll, and we ran a few polls regarding mental health. Now there's a team of us, and we really took some time to develop this and structure this really well, because we wanted to ask the right questions in a right way. And what we uncovered is just unbelievable. What people are going through and emotional and stuff, and they actually shared that with us. And I think the secret sauce is the way we are speaking to them. And I'd like to kind of hopefully uncover that and give some value to the rest of your listeners in terms of the world before COVID, the world after COVID. But to answer your question directly, what qualifications do I have? I've been in marketing for a while. I worked in a Murdoch newspaper for 4 years. And a friend of mine said, come and work in an ad agency, digital ad agency. I'm like, what, people are going to be buying stuff online? This is in 2004. Took the gamble, never looked back, and kind of saw the evolution of digital advertising, which has been amazing as it continues to evolve. Do I know everything? Hell no. Does everybody know everything about digital? Hell no. I think, what's great about your channel and your videos is uncovering everybody's personal experience with digital, with marketing, and how that's affected their lives and how it might affect other people's lives as well. So in terms of my journey, I think it's not necessarily qualifications that impress anymore. I think it's actually just connections and experience. I would hire someone who gets it rather than someone who's who's got a master's in advertising marketing from wherever. I think the world has changed in that aspect. So I hope I've got a bit of both.
Good, excellent. And the thing is, when I ask that question, I'm really not interested in qualification, actual certificates. I'm interested in kind of experience is what I'm interested in. And I think you're right. I think there's a backlash against, like, there are some very famous marketing type people, Vaynerchuk, Seth Godin, these kinds of people are saying, don't waste your time going to university. And I think that's quite a strong message that's coming out now. Like I've spoken to people on this podcast who started when they were 12. So it's like you don't have to wait for anything. You don't need any certificate. You don't need any invitation. You can just get on and start doing this stuff. And then I think the other thing that you're referring to, this is a process of testing, is you will find the way, or you'll end up doing something else. It'll be as simple as that. So nobody who has your experience, who's been in the game as long, I would hope, nobody who's been in the business for 20 years has been failing for 20 years. That would be horrible. So that's the experience that I'm more interested in. Okay, so this thing that you're doing, I think we need to understand, because you can't just poll populations, or markets. It's like there needs to be some things in place to facilitate that. So what situation were you in kind of during the lockdowns, and what did you have that facilitated this, and what led you to decide that you wanted to know what was going on for people?
I think there was a line in the sand drawn during, because of COVID. And the line in the sand was to show businesses that they had to go digital.
Okay.
Whether you liked it or not, it was that time where during lockdown in 2020, they were like, if my shop front's closed, I'm closed to the world. And I think it forced a lot of business owners to reconsider or pull forward their digital presence a lot more. I think the second thing that it also did was it shifted. There was a transformational power balance shift from government corporations to community.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, since the dawn of time, authority were the ones that told us what we need to do and how we need to do it and why we need to do it. I think there's been a massive shift to that rhetoric. I think we're moving more towards a community-focused, community-based society, where it's basically needs and wants and services and goods that support that community instead of the other way around. And I really see the infancy of the life cycle starting literally right now. And, when we spoke off air as well, the examples I bring up is, I noticed it during Brexit. Everybody thought it was going to be one way. The community said something else. Trump comes in, where all the pundits said absolutely not. The Latinos and the African Americans actually voted for Trump, but when you look into it, they were actually voting against Hillary, hence why they came out to vote for Trump. Then you've also got the introduction of blockchain, which is decentralized, transparent, authentic, genuine, all these kind of things, that are coming up. GameStop, as I mentioned as well, is a perfect example of how community band together to show that they've got power as well. So yeah, there seems to be a bit of a difference at the moment. We kind of tried to take a little bit of that and give people and amplify their voice. I think a lot of people during lockdown didn't feel that they were being heard. I continue to say kind of being heard because there were people who were suffering, man. In Australia, I think, it goes unsaid because the focus was somewhere else. Our job was to try and amplify their voice so they could be heard and something could be done about it. Our polls are 5 questions long. That's it. It's meant to just take 20 seconds. So we're an insights company. We just get a moment in time of what people think in their hearts and minds. The 4 questions are multiple choice. The last question we refer to as spill your beans. That's an opportunity for people to just open form, just go blah. And that's where the gold is. So we are positioning ourselves well away from research agencies commissioned by, ex-client or ex-government department. We want to come across more as a mate at a bar that's having a chat to them. And it seems to be working because I think our tone of voice and our culture of how we come across and how we have meaningful connections with communities is coming across with their engagement.
Okay, great. Right, so much, so many questions. Right, so the first question is just to clear this up. So, with the businesses that you were running, like your business changed, as I understand it, as a result of the pandemic. So, your business changed, but you had, for example, data from your businesses. Is that the way that you explained it to me before?
Yeah, I'm just a community consultant for the business as well, so it's
Right.
not my business.
Okay.
But in saying that, yes, the access to Australians um, is there. I guess the real the real the real challenge we had was how do we pursue something more fulfilling? And
Right.
the opportunity presented itself actually, and we just trialed it out, and it seemed to work. Um, and I think honestly, coming back to the way community is starting to run, or starting to actually have a bit more power. Let's just put it that way. What we are doing is simply giving them a microphone. And
Yes.
then we'll take that data and give it off to businesses that want to serve them better, or government departments to want to serve them better. Let me give you an example. An auto company needed to increase test drives during lockdown, and they were putting plastic on the internal components of the car, right? High touch areas, the steering wheel and the door handles and gears. And it was very costly. It was also taking a lot of time logistically to put it on and take it off, all that stuff. So I actually said, why don't we? So their idea was to take the car to the person's home, get them in the car, get them the driver's seat, take out all the plastic. Hopefully it's safe, and away you go. Um, they were kind of searching for another solution, but were drawing blank. So we asked the community. So we went out to people who were looking to buy a new car in the next 6 months, and they came back with just give us branded leather gloves. That's it. Just give us gloves that we can also then use after the test drive. Thank you. And the auto manufacturer was just bewildered because they've got 20,000 in a warehouse gathering dust, and their brand can now go into the person's home. So I think the point is, moving forward, let's try and eradicate assumptions, and let's just ask. Let's simply ask the community what they want and just give them what they want. So we
Okay.
want to facilitate that discussion.
I love this because you're talking about. So, is it 6 million? You have access to, is it email access or 6 million
Yeah,
email addresses? So, it's
that's right.
a significant portion of the population of Australia, which is, what is that, around 20 million in
Yeah,
Australia?
26 million all up. Yeah.
26 million. So, you are looking at somewhere around 30% of the population. You have access to those people through their email addresses. So, that's how this is happening. Now,
Yeah.
you say 100%, like corporation or businesses exist to serve markets, or they derive their value from serving markets. This should be the relationship. And 100% governments exist to serve populations. They are given the authority, the consent to do that. And you talk about them not being heard. They're not even being consulted a lot of the time. So all of this is driven by assumption. And the assumption is that we know best. And I think my understanding of Brexit aligns entirely with what you're saying. Brexit was a response to a situation where basically there's been two democratic processes post-war in the UK. The first was the referendum to go into the EU in
Yeah.
1974, and the second one was the referendum to leave in 2016. Other than that, the democratic process is not representative or anything like. So there are huge swathes of the population in the UK who really don't have much of a voice in the traditional democratic process. So for me, 100%, the Brexit vote was a big. What do we have to do to stick it to the what's the word? The establishment. Like, what is the thing that we can do to deliver the strongest message that we're unhappy to the establishment? And the shame of that is that they had an opportunity to speak, they spoke, and then they immediately went back to not listening anymore. Do you know what I mean? Or not even consulting anymore. So
Well,
I love this. And yeah, I mean, I
just
really,
yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say just on that, right? The formula, there is a formula to grow businesses, and it's only three. There's one of three ways that you can grow a business. One is new clients.
Yep,
The second one is get your existing clients to buy more frequently.
yep,
And the third way is to get your existing clients to spend more
yes,
per purchase, right? That's the only three ways. Now, when you live in a world that is so saturated with competition, you need to stand out. And again, I think, again, this is a transformation. So it's all new ground. But but at the end of the day, if you just ask or listen and just give, I know it's so simple and stupid, right? But that works right now. Now is that time. And I'm gonna supersede one of your other questions. And what's the USP? What's the reason? How, I think a fourth question or the third question was, what is it? What is it that we have in terms of the secret sauce? And I guess, or what can other businesses take from it? And it's just one word. It's listen. It's time to listen. We've been told too long. We've been told by the establishment, by authorities, by brands. We've been talked to. We're not talked for. We're being talked at by advertising. We need advertising to talk to us, to me. That's why Amazon's so great. It's literally like walking into the old days was you'd walk into a bookstore and there's books everywhere, and you need to go, where's history, personal development, I don't know, whatever it is that you're looking for. Oh, there it is. Go there now. Oh my gosh, what do I look for? Now it's literally walk into a small bookstore that has everything that is collated based on your interests, wants, and likes. That's the world right now.
yes.
And the quicker we listen, I think the quicker we'll achieve business goals.
100%. And the thing is, all of the risk, like being in business, is stupidly risky. This is why the successful ones make the big bucks because they took the big risk. But for me, this eradicates all of the risk. You're like, why get? Because people don't talk to their markets or they don't understand their markets, then they're producing solutions in silos. Do you know what I mean? Away from them. So the worst sales and marketing, and I've done it a lot in my time when I was selling, especially, is you're trying to foist a solution on someone who's got no interest or need for it. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, why do that? Why take that risk when, like, you're sending out your salespeople to have conversations with these prospects, but when the salespeople come back, the only question is, well, did they buy it? No.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like, well, then you're shit.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
no, but
Well,
not why didn't they buy it?
that's
Not
right,
even why
exactly.
did they entertain you? Do you know what I mean? Why are they giving you tea and biscuits? Because we must be somewhere in the area of something that they need. So what the conversation you had would have been really useful. But that conversation doesn't happen. It's like, literally, did they buy it? No, okay, you're shit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Force someone else to buy this shit that we've made completely independent of them. This blows my mind. If there is a secret to marketing, I'm not big on this secrets nuggets thing. I think learn how to do marketing, do it, you'll be successful. But right at the very core is this understanding what a market needs or wants and developing that thing for them. That takes out all the risk, I think.
yeah, sure. I totally agree. There's two things that come to mind. One is, Jordan Belfort's, Wolf of Wall Street, sell me this pen,
Yes.
right? And he was asked about it, later, sell me this pen. And he said, well, the whole premise of that is to start asking questions
Yes.
before you even sell. How dare you sell before asking questions? So, what do you need the pen for? How important is a nice pen for you? What
Yes.
are you signing for you to buy a nice pen? Then you craft your story that is
Yes.
relevant to him. Build his bookstore essentially. Now, before that, if you didn't know all that, it's how businesses and governments essentially are kind of running right now. They're kind of going, I think this, based on
Yeah.
this. Again, my point is, I think the days, Martin, and this is, in the past we had brands that used to say, I mean, it's like a friend coming up to you and saying, I want to be a good friend. I want to be your best friend. Can you tell me how to dress? Can you tell me how to speak to you? When shall I call you? When shall I not? How do you want me to act when I'm around you? And you're like, just be yourself. That's why I like you. I think that's starting to translate into brands right now. You know, I think it's all about that, which is listening. And not sucking up, I guess, right? Because we can kind of see disingenuous messaging a mile
Yeah.
away.
I think so. Listening, yeah, important. I think asking and caring. I think that's what hasn't been going on. But I know you said when we spoke before that you want to talk to me about the future and stuff. I don't know. Let's maybe do that later, because I think
Yes,
the situation is worse than these people haven't been. They haven't been heard because they haven't been consulted, and they haven't been consulted because nobody cares. Because somehow the thing is functioning without those things happening. So governments don't need to consult, they don't need to listen, they don't need to care, and they still continue to function. And the same pretty much for brands. I am having a bit of a mare at the moment. So I don't know if you can consult me through this, because I'm remembering when I ran my agency properly and we were running with 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 clients and 15, 20, 30 campaigns all the time. We were engaging with the digital marketing platforms all day, every day. And it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare because you have no recourse. Like, if you spend the money, if something goes wrong, you don't get to pick up the phone, you don't get to talk to someone, you don't get to thing. And then somebody in one of those corporations will make a decision, and the change happens globally, and it screws you up. Like a metric that you and your client were really focused on is just removed overnight, and the change happens globally. So what's the point of this? The point of this is, now that I'm getting busy again, I'm engaging with 3 or 4 of these platforms, and nothing's changed. It's still a disaster.
right.
These. So that's the question. If there's a question in this, which you're not concerned with, so you shouldn't even be able to know the answer, but you might know the answer, which is, how is this functioning without this element of consultation, listening, and caring? How is it functioning
I think
without
I
those
think
things?
I think I can answer with some degree of confidence, and it's squeezing blood out of a stone. So
Yeah.
it's all numbers, right? It's all Excel spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff to make numbers work, and numbers do work. So as an example, if it's I will show this ad 10,000 times for one sale. So I
Yes.
want I want 1,000 sales, bump that impressions up, right? And to some degree it works. The problem is what they're not measuring is the mental relative positioning of that person. I'll give you a perfect example. We've got a federal election happening in Australia next Saturday, and it's a pretty big election given the time and where we're at right now. And all they're doing is bombarding us with ads. And there's one particular party that's just bombarding everybody with ads about poo-pooing the opposition. That's all they do, right? So there's two ways of building the tallest building in the world. One is the hard way, brick by brick.
Yep.
The other way is by tearing all the other buildings down.
Yes.
Now, there's consequences for both of those decisions. My point is, I'm waiting for a leader to come up and say, I will die on my sword. This is what I believe in. This is it. If you're with me, you're with me. Now, if I don't actually deliver, I will hand in my resignation. I am that invested. Now, no one will ever say that. Why? That's my point, right? So we are now looking for people like that. There was a there was a press conference that was done a couple of weeks ago, and someone from the public, was just done in a courtyard outside, in a park. And someone walking past just said, nice to meet you, Minister. I'd like to ask you a few questions. And he said, I think the press corps would be offended by that. And the press were like, no. And he's like, oh, well, welcome to my suburb. Thank you for coming. Got a few questions. And he refused to answer those questions. Now, what they fail to realize is people like us or constituents are going, hang on a sec, isn't this all about representing us? So elections are very similar to what brand campaigns are. They're supposed to represent what you want. And if you are going, if in a world where our attention span is so short and we value our time more every day, like this is the world we are now, can you interrupt enough people to get sales? The answer is actually yes, unfortunately. But what is not being measured is someone going, that damn brand, I can't stand them anymore. Oh my gosh, I can't stand it when I see that same bloody ad again. I'll share this little story. I remember when Tiger Woods got chased down his driveway with a golf club from his wife. That's not the funny story. But I was so busy at the time and I just wanted to read what happened. And I went to the site and there was a medium rectangle back in the day. I don't know if you remember that medium rectangle ad, just kind of going, look at me. And I'm like, no, I just want to know. I don't have much time, just reading. And this thing's going like this. And my eye just kind of went, and I looked at it and it was a travel company. And I went, you bastards. I don't have time. You just interrupted me negatively. That has left a negative mental relative positioning in my mind. And I've never, ever used them since, ever, by principle. So now what they don't know is they paid for that to happen to me. So to answer your question, I think that what's happening right now is overblowing, of ads to try and squeeze blood out of the stone. That's one way, but the consequence is they might be losing brand credibility and equity along the way.
Yeah, and I think there might be. And there's two things that occur to me. I should write them down or else I'm going to forget them. I've written down the first one, which is awareness. Okay, and the other one is... okay, we'll come to that. So, Gary Vaynerchuk. I can't stand the guy. Never met him. I don't know him. But for me, he's the enemy of me and people like me who are trying to communicate the truth, trying to empower people to be more successful in their business. So I reacted recently to one of his talks. It was 35 minutes of marketing strategy. There was no marketing strategy. There was no planning. There was nothing. It was literally awful. I did it with my friend, thankfully, who's a much nicer person. So it was a much more tempered kind of reaction.
Yeah.
But that is I think the success of people like Gary Vaynerchuk or dozens of brands, like international brands, is this tsunami of awareness where people, I think, can only be buying Gary Vaynerchuk because he's so famous. It's like the Kardashian effect. It's like we like them because everyone knows them. Not me or you, I wouldn't imagine. But millions of people like these people because millions of people know these people. So there seems to be something like that going on. So I think that aligns with what you're saying. The other thing I want to say, which is more dangerous, I want to tell you about Hootsuite. Do you know Hootsuite, the social media planning tool? They recently trebled their prices. And then they took their phones off the hook, like figuratively. There's no way to feed back to these people. Now, thankfully or otherwise, I don't know why, because I would normally miss these things, but I saw my bank statement, and it's like 3 times as much money has gone out for this thing than should do. So I kind of went to war with them, but they've literally trebled their prices and taken their phones off the hook. Now, the only way that can work, because I got feisty with them, I went to war with them a little bit, I got my money back. But the only way that that would be effective, I mean, they've got to reckon on not losing 66% of their customers. So if they've trebled their prices and they keep a third of their customers, jobs are good and they're doing much less work for exactly the same amount of money. But the only way that can be effective is if people are so complacent as not to care. That's rude. Like if you said to me, "Can I borrow a tenner?" and I say, "Yeah, it's in my wallet," and you take 30 quid, that's rude. If you say, "Can you buy this thing for $10 a month for the next 12 months?" and then you start taking $30, it's rude. So it seems to me that there's complacency going on in the world, that people aren't like you and I, where they say, "Okay, you did that thing, I don't like it, I'm done with you." Whereas people seem to be much more accepting. And this brings me then to the other point, which is I don't think people are thinking in the way that we need them to be for the future to be the way it is now. So, for example, something happens, Brexit happens. Okay, this has happened. It's happened because people in the UK are racist or xenophobic. The war in Ukraine happens. It's happened because of this reason. Trump gets elected. It's happened because of this reason. So we've become so polarized, I think, and people just fall really easily into one or other of those camps and just say, this happened, I believe that. Because I believe all these other things, I believe that. The question is, what's the question?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What do you think of Hootsuite now?
I think
Would you use their services again?
never again. And
What would you
I'm going to
tell other
make...
people about?
Sorry?
What would you tell other people about
I would tell
Hootsuite?
them, don't use this service. 100%. And the thing is, I teach people, so I have recommended Hootsuite, I'm not joking, to thousands of people in the last 12, 14 years. Literally, I stand up and I'm like, and a part of this is using a tool. The tool we use is Hootsuite. So the thing is about that, they claim to have 26 million users. So I've recommended it to thousands of people. I don't know how many thousands of those people have actually taken it up. Okay, so the question is for you is, like, I love your enthusiasm and your energy and your positivity. You feel like communities are getting a voice. My question is, what if they're not actually thinking? What if they're not actually in the game, thinking about what's going on?
This is the community or the brands and government?
The community.
If they're not in the game, if they're not invested to take part in the poll?
Not if they're not invested to take part in the poll. Not if they're not invested to take place in society.
That's and that's fine. So one of the things that we're quite proud about is we kind of say on the email and on our site as well, if this is not for you, we encourage you strongly to unsubscribe.
Right.
Like, please, because we're not looking to build a panel, we're looking to build a community of people that want to speak up that will eventually help on the road to recovery for Australia.
Right.
It will be quicker if we understand what the community want and how government and brands can help. We are just the pipe, essentially. So no, we're not concerned about that. We're just concerned about identifying the like-minded people who want to stand up anonymously and actually speak up to help different industries. We're running a travel poll right now, and essentially the two things that we're looking to uncover is, one, if you were to book a holiday tomorrow, what is the thing that would incentivize you? Is it discounts, upgrades, competition points? What is it? And the other thing is, what's your concern about going on a holiday? So all of these questions have got COVID, obviously, undertones in there. Now, the point is, the travel industry right now need a boost. We've had some horrific floods in Queensland. They want to rebuild. The government have a war chest now to give the travel industry. What do they do with it? What do they do with it? Where do they go? It brings me back to my questions to you about Hootsuite. Hootsuite don't know what they've done to you. Hootsuite do not know that we're talking about them negatively right now. How much damage is that going to do? There might be one person watching this that was going to sign up to Hootsuite, but might reconsider. Now
Yeah.
that's amazing, man. And it's all because they didn't pick up the phone. Yes, companies make mistakes. They might have, overcharged or whatever it is. But I guess my point is no one's measuring that. We're not looking to measure that. What we're looking to do is hopefully get government and brands to understand that things have changed. And critical business decisions need to be thought through. And we might help with that, to get
Yes.
more confidence in making decisions. So yeah.
Okay. So to underline the negative, to draw a line under the negatives, Hootsuite do know. Like I tagged their CEO, maybe he didn't get it
Brilliant.
in a LinkedIn post, and
Yeah.
he said, I mean, maybe he's got someone managing it, maybe he doesn't know. I don't know. He said, this guy, get in touch with this guy. He tagged somebody. Not sorry, not anything like that. Just get in touch with this guy. This guy is the VP of product, customer success, or some bullshit. He also wasn't interested in doing his job. So they do know. And they will know because I'm talking about them negatively quite a lot. And I am going to produce a video and it will rank on YouTube above their videos for why people shouldn't buy it. Because I think like the challenge in digital marketing, I'm not even joking, 50% of it is dealing with these platforms who don't who don't provide a good service and don't take a responsibility. And you don't have an option. You will be dealing with Google, you will be dealing with Facebook, you will be dealing with Twitter, you will be dealing with Hootsuite, YouTube, all of these platforms. That I think is 50% of the challenge, that you're dealing with these corporations and they are exactly like you're describing. Unasking, unhearing, uncaring. Because there is no feedback mechanism. Let's take it to the positives, because I think this is where this is really interesting and useful. Do you know Johan Noguera? He presented yesterday in the networking thing that we do.
Yes,
And
I do know him. Yes, yes. He's
yes,
awesome.
he's awesome. He's coming on this. He's going to have a chat with me at some
Awesome.
point. We're really close to doing that. But he's built like this monolithic system, does
Yeah.
everything you could possibly need it to do in
AI.
sales and marketing. There's like 10 components of this thing. Each one of
Yeah.
these components could stand alone as its own business. But
Yeah.
he's built this thing and he's been presenting this thing. Well, in the presentation that I saw him deliver this week, he was saying that eventually they did the most sensible thing on the planet, which is what we're talking about now, is they just spoke to their market and said, look, which of these things is most exciting? And they said, oh, well, we only want this one thing. And all of these elements do this one thing. But now his whole messaging is, here's this one thing that we know everyone wants. And
Yeah.
he's not even concerning people with like what goes on in the background. The point
Yeah.
of that is that if we are developing solutions in isolation, the temptation, the likelihood is that we are going to overdevelop that solution. It will be more than people need or want. Like your example with the gloves. Like we can spend an hour dressing this car so that it's COVID proof so someone can test drive it and take it to the house, or we can give them a $5 pair of gloves. So the beauty of what you're saying is that typically what the market wants is less complicated, less expensive to produce than what it is that we end up developing if we are operating in a silo. Is that?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you're bang on. Absolutely, 100% right. But also, here's the other thing. How many times have you or all of your friends said the words, if only,
Yes.
if only this, this brand did this, if only Uber did this, if only, if only, if only. Now, those are all $1 million ideas that just get disappeared. It's invisible.
Yes.
Um, we're trying to make that the invisible visible, and it's now that time to kind of, because of the shift of community centric and community focus. I think now that there's this chance that ideas like that might reach the right people, and make a change.
Yeah, but I don't think that's happening organically. I think that's only happening because you are standing up and facilitating this. And I don't see there being dozens and dozens and dozens of you doing this. See, when I teach marketing, I teach like what I call a virtuous cycle. You have the good chance to win a customer. Like somebody says, yeah, what you're doing is close to what I need, or somebody comes to you and says, I've got a problem. And that's the beginning of the virtuous cycle. You develop a solution for that person, and then that person gets value from that. And when they've got another issue, they come to you and they say, okay, now I need help with this. And if you're a smart marketer, you just want to get that virtuous cycle started. And then once you produce those solutions, then you can go to the world and say, look, we developed this to do this thing. If you've got having this problem, then talk to us. But it should be that virtuous cycle where the customer has a problem, you find a solution, it delivers value, you have their trust and their ear. They come back to you when you have more problems and when they have more issues or challenges, and you just go round and round and round and round forever. It's not what happens. Like in my experience, what would happen is there will be very geeky people developing solutions because they've imagined there might be a problem. And then these solutions are foisted on the sales and marketing people who then have to try and force people to buy them. Sorry,
Absolutely.
man. Got me.
No, you're 100% right. Every word is right. We've dealt with agencies where creative guys just knew that greens went with yellows, and didn't necessarily know what are the three things that they should say for an email campaign to be successful. And then we've seen the worst of creatives that have superseded all of the sexy creatives, and I think that's a real problem. Now, polls are not new.
No.
Research is not new. It's it's not a new industry at all. I think the point is how we connect, how you speak to people. Are you incentivizing people for their voice? Interesting. I don't know many people who have, like, would a multimillionaire want a $100 gift card for half an hour of his time? Are you getting a real cross section of the community in order to make a critical decision? Are you getting your 80-year-old to your unemployed, 25-year-old? That's the point. That's the whole point. I think is we just want to move in a different direction and cut ties with how things were done in the past. And now's the time to do that. And I think the community is showing us that as well. None of the responses are incentivized at all. There's zero incentive, zero, other than them raising their voice. And they are part of a community now that might make positive change, because the data is going to thought leaders, business decision leaders that are going to make critical decisions. I think that's the incentive. That's the difference that we have. I wish things were done a bit differently. You say we're the first. I don't know if we're the first, but I think the meaningful connection that we have, and this is kind of what umbrellas our whole conversation, is our secret sauce.
Yes.
It's not necessarily a plug and play. Let's just take this and go to, start a new company and compete against these guys. I don't think it's that easy, because it's the intangible we're talking about here. The tangibles are, anybody can replicate the tangibles, but what's the intangible? I read somewhere that there's three things that people look for in a very good relationship with someone else. And that's to feel safe, to feel loved. And you know what the third one is?
Be heard.
To be heard, man.
Yeah.
And that's what we want from someone else. But that's what we want from everybody else. Everybody else. We want to be, we want to tell brands that you're hearing me, that you love me, and that I feel safe if I'm in your shop or if I buy a product or whatever it is. There's gold in that, and we kind of want to tap into that a lot more and amplify it.
Okay, good. Now, because I'm cynical, I'm sorry. Everyone is paying lip service to this idea that they want to have a meaningful relationship and have a community. Going back to the Hootsuite thing, the VP for customer organization, I think that's what he's called. Customer organize. I don't want to be organized. I want to be served. I want to get value. Like, give me customer value. VP for customer value. Great title. Don't organize me. Anyway, his specialization, when you look at him, is teaching brands how to develop meaningful customer relationships or some shit. Do you know what I mean? It's like so everyone is paying lip service to this, even those idiots. So the question is, how do you? And I think people are cynical of that. I know you're doing it very differently. So the question is then, how do you establish a meaningful relationship with a community?
We took a lot of time to establish the culture, the tone of voice, and who we really are.
Yes.
And we started actually with what we don't like about polls, what we don't like about research stuff, what
Yes.
what we don't like about telemarketing, people that call up, and then we try to identify which ones of those would we actually want to take part in and why. And it kept on coming back to just a simple notion of human connection. And we were kind of we were typecast into all this noise of don't do this and this is how you get more engagement. And when we actually burst that bubble, that's when we thought, no, we kind of just want to do everything opposite because the old way wasn't working. So every database in the world wants to keep you. We're the only ones that are saying, if this is not for you, we strongly advise you not to leave. We get emails just on that saying, no one has ever said that. Because you said that, I'm on board. You guys are cool. This is awesome. I think it's about, you don't like meaningful connections. I get it, the term. I actually think it's about the intangible. That's what it is. The authenticity, and also the point that it's we are not an organization. We are fellow Australian talking to other fellow Australians. We are not ABC Research Agency commissioned by the federal government to understand how you use X, Y, Z. You know, I think we are the person at the dog park that has that chat, but we'll take that chat and what you say and do something positive with it. I need to also mention every single poll that we run, we're also looking to donate to charity as well, be part of the cycle of giving back. That's what this is all about.
Yes. Brilliant. I mean, I love this. And I think what I'm hearing from you, what you're not quite saying, is that you are only ever asking, and it's only ever coming from like a like a how could this be better for you kind of aspect. So the brands that are paying lip service to wanting to have a meaningful community, a meaningful interaction, just then immediately go back to telling again. It's like we really care about our community. Now you do this and you do this and you do this and you buy that. Do you know what I mean? So
Yep.
I suppose that is the difference. And
Yeah, yeah. I think it's coming also back to just it's just representation, right?
yes,
We just want to be represented. And again, it comes back to if only that shoe company did this, that would be amazing. You
yes,
know, uh, but how would that shoe company know? Oh, you need to go to the website and fill out 10 form fields before you put your little suggestion in a box. And where will that suggestion actually go? Or that's the point. I think it's been that there hasn't been infrastructure before opened up like it has now. And I think that also the other thing is the difference is I think people are willing to speak up, man, right now. Like I told you, I've been part of email marketing, since 2006, 7, and things have changed. There's a lot more engagement when people feel that they're part of something. Yes, we are asking, but funnily enough, we're also taking because we're taking data, but we're being transparent about it. Everything we want to do is just authentic. And I really think we've touched on the nerve, something there. I mean, I'll give you another example. We're talking to Department of Transport, and they're basically trying to figure out how to budget the infrastructure for trains Are people coming into work full time? Are they coming into work every single day? If they're not, which days are they coming in? What are their concerns about, catching public transport? All these things that currently they're making assumptions on. And we're talking big, big budgets, riding on, critical decisions. So we're about bringing it to the people that commute and saying, what are your concerns? When do you travel in? I'm concerned about, sitting next to other people during winter, as an example. That's why I'm going to work at 6 o'clock in the morning. Interesting. Actually, I'll tell you another beautiful one. We ran a poll for a online car manufacturer, and it was just trying to uncover whether they were open and comfortable with purchasing a car online. One of the questions, the last question we asked was, what's the one thing you really don't like about purchasing a car from a dealership? So there was your usual, responses, sneaky car salesman, those sharks, blah, 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 blah. And there were two people that said, being a woman. Being a woman was the worst thing about buying a car from a dealership. So the point is, they felt taken advantage of because they were a woman. They probably felt a disconnect with the dealership, and maybe they felt, negatively around that. The client all of a sudden just went, oh my gosh, you just uncovered a new market that we need to speak to, that we need to feel comfortable. That's the point. That's what we exist for, to uncover, pretty interesting insights like that.
Yeah, and I think it goes to, like, why don't they ask? And the reason they don't ask is because they might get the wrong answer. They're so committed, they're so invested in the track that they're on. So, for example, in that example, females probably don't want to go and deal with male car salesmen. 99.8% of car salesmen are males. So not only is there an opportunity there to be providing a better buying environment for females, but there's an opportunity to provide employment for other females to go and meet this need. But what if they are just horrible, sexist old men who don't care about? Do you know what I mean? It's like, so it comes back to this caring thing. Like, you have to be, if you're going to do this, you have to care. Because if you don't care, it's kind of inconvenient that you have to do something different now just because these people want it,
Yeah, but there's a consequence to that, right? So if businesses choose to continue doing businesses that way, the consequence is Exhibit A, Hootsuite, with you.
But there is no consequence. That, like, Hootsuite don't care. Like, I'm going to go to war with Gary Vaynerchuk. He's never going to know that I'm at war with him. Do you know what I mean? It's like they are too big to fail, or too big to care, or too big to divert. So even if so that's what you have to do, is you have to dress the responses from these polls as benefits for the corporations, or else it won't get incorporated. A certain amount of dissatisfaction from existing customers, it's budgeted in, it's on the spreadsheet. A gross amount of waste in your marketing, budgeted in, it's on the spreadsheet. Because at the end of the day, we as consumers pay for all of that waste and all of that poor service. We pay for all of that. And that is the danger, is that these corporations don't care enough. They don't care enough to change course if they find out that either the opportunity is there but it's not big enough, or it's inconvenient to do that.
Can I ask
that
you,
would
Martin,
be my danger.
what's your utopia with brands? Where do you see the world where there is a beautiful relationship between brand and consumers?
Yeah, I'm a cynical old. I don't see it anymore. Like, for example, when I phone the bank, like I've had to recently, my phone fell over, I've had issues, had to call my bank, and they say, we are experiencing an unusual high volume of calls right now. You might have to wait for 10 minutes. I don't hear that anymore. Yeah, I've been hearing that for the last. Been hearing it for the last 15 years, but I don't hear that anymore. What I hear is, we don't give a shit about you, the consumer. You can sit there and steam for 15 minutes while you wait to speak to somebody, And we don't care enough about our staff that we care. Like, we only want them to deal with really angry, bored, upset people who've been listening to appalling music for the last 15 minutes. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what I hear when that happens, because, you and I know that they are employing business intelligence. They know exactly what the volume of calls is. They've done it all day, every day for the last 15 years at volume, so they
yeah.
know exactly what's going on. Um, I can't think. I had a good experience with Apple recently, but then I've had 10 years of really bad experience with them. Um, I can't think of a brand that I like at the moment. I was an Apple fanboy at one time in my life. I absolutely was, but I'm not anymore. I can't think of a brand I like. What's your favorite brand?
I have a few brands that I like because of what they're doing. In terms
Okay.
of me, in the market, but in terms of me personally, I tend to think that your small medium businesses are the ones that I think big business can learn a lot from. You know, and I mean everything. I mean, we had an experience with a real estate agent recently that sent a thank you card.
Yes.
As simple as that, which was pretty cool. And that's just after the first meeting. Then, walk into a store and someone calling your name. I remember years ago it changed my everything when there was a cafe in the city that, because I came in and bought mochas from them every day at 10 o'clock, they actually had a mug with my name on it. That's all you needed.
Yes.
I, that's all they needed. I'm coming and I'm bringing my clients with me next time. You know,
Yes.
and that's those are my favorite brands. And I think the small and medium businesses get it. There's a lot that the big business can learn, and again, it comes back to what we started this conversation about. It's common bloody sense, man.
Yes.
It's not science. We're not, there's no statistician here doing, it's just common sense. Jeez, come on, guys, raise the bar.
Yeah, and so this comes to the crux then of the issue, which is, I think we've got to a point in history where corporations aren't capable of behaving responsibly or sensibly. That's where I think we've got to. And that's what this thing is about extending the opportunity of what you know from talking to millions of people, what I know from working with thousands of businesses and audiences and et cetera, to make small businesses more successful. Because a small business has what governments and corporations don't have, which is accountability. So this is the actual issue. Like, if I'm doing business with you, you will know where my office is. If you don't like what I've done, you could come round and smack me in the mouth. Do you know what I mean? Which will keep me accountable. Like,
Yeah,
I can't believe, for example, Boris Johnson in the UK is still in office. Like, I can't believe he hasn't been assassinated. It's insane for the way that he's behaved in the last 2 years. It
yeah,
is insane. And the answer to that is because they spend millions of pounds keeping this guy safe. Like, you can't get anywhere near him. Like, if you are physically angry and you want to
right.
physically do whatever, I'm not suggesting anyone should, definitely not. But there is no accountability, and that is the problem. So what I'm interested in is empowering businesses that do understand and take responsibility and be accountable. That's what I'm really interested in. That's what I'm really,
Yeah.
really interested in.
I'm not as cynical as you. I think that world is coming. I don't know how far away. I am an optimist, and I'm hoping that they will have no choice. And I'm talking about the big guys, but to transform, and to deliver what they need to deliver properly in terms of customer service. Um,
The
you know,
only thing that will change their course is if there's a commercial imperative to do that. So if you can get enough people not just saying we don't like this and we're going to leave, but actually leaving, that's the only time I think, because these things are monolithic. They can't
yeah,
change direction.
sure.
So, and the thing is, there's not many people as cynical as me. But I'm laughing about it, so maybe I'm not. I read a book called Learned Optimism once. I don't know if you've read that book. But in
No.
the middle, there's a very scientific experiment. You know it's scientific because he spends the chapter before saying how scientific it is and the chapter afterwards saying how scientific it is. And
Okay.
I did this, and I came out as marvelously optimistic. So, but I might have changed since then. The point of
I'm
this is
only.
the
You
change.
get my point, though, right?
I get your point 100%. The point is, it is changing. The number of small businesses in the UK has gone from 2 million 20 years ago to 6 million now. So, given that there must be at least one person in each of those businesses employed, and the population of the working population in the UK is something like 30 million, that's 20% of people at least are employed in small businesses. So maybe it is coming. Maybe that change is coming.
I'm optimistic, and I'm happy that small and medium businesses are doing it. And the thing is, I will. People like me, I think, might just continue to be loyal to those ones other than others.
Yes.
Uh, to me, that's good enough. You know what I mean? We might be on our way. It might
Yeah.
be in our lifetime. It might not. But I think we're pursuing things in the right direction. And again, um, I think it will be like you said. It's going to be based on numbers. Only when there's a problem on numbers go down and other numbers go up somewhere else. That's where they might look to make change. But until that, it will be a very slow. It will be trying to turn a cruise ship, right? So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so to come back to the question that you haven't asked me that you threatened to ask me before is like, what am I optimistic about the future? I think the only optimism for me, or the only thing that I have faith in, is the silent majority, because I think where we are living now is we have very, very noisy minorities. And I think that's why it appears to be so polarized, because it's just that the people who are at the edges are the people who are making the most noise. And I think in the middle, the people you're speaking to are the silent majority. And if you are giving voice to those people, then 100% that's an incredibly exciting thing. That's why we're having this conversation, is because that needs to happen. And maybe and the more organizations, big organizations, I don't want to see the end of corporations, but I do want to see them behaving much more responsibly and getting back to the core, which is we deliver value for people. And
yeah.
that's how come we are so successful. We're so successful because we deliver so much value for so many people. Like, I would love to get back to that. That would be like a utopia.
Okay, gotcha. Can I ask you another quick question?
Yes.
Does intention matter to you? So you got Corporation A that says they're going to donate X to this charity, but you know that they're doing it not from the goodness of their heart, but potentially for tax implications or benefits or to win a client or whatever it is. Now, the end result, the net result, is that charity is getting a lot of money. Does intention matter to you?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, it does, but it's really hard to trust that anymore, because like there's a narrative that's persisted in the world of sales and marketing for like the last 15 years. Like, Seth Godin came out with his purple cow, and the idea was delight your customers, etc., etc. So what's happened, I think, is everyone's paid lip service to that, and any business that's not accountable has paid lip service to that. So, but I think we've got to the situation where I don't want to be moralized by brands anymore. And I can give you, for instances, where that's going on. I 100% don't want to be moralized. Don't make a donation, charge me less money, and give me the freedom to donate where I want to donate, and if I want to donate. So I really don't want to be moralized. And I think it's really dangerous. So, for example, M&M's, I don't know if you saw, they went woke. M&M's, the chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they went woke. So
Okay.
the Eminem that was wearing the sexy pumps now has a much more gender
Neutral.
indefinite pair of shoes on. There's now an anxious Eminem. There's a blah 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 something else.
Okay.
So that's really interesting to me because I think that's dangerous because I did stand up comedy for a very short period of time. And what they told me, or what they told us as a group, was don't do jokes about gender or race or politics because what happens is you're going to split the room. And like gender, especially, like if you're upsetting all the women in the room, the guys aren't going to laugh. Like Will Smith just demonstrated that to us. Do you know what I mean? So you have to be really careful about doing this. And I don't really understand why brands are doing this. Like the people who are very, very vocal about gender politics or gender identities and stuff are a very small minority at this point in time. So why would a brand pander to those small amount of people? How did we get here? We got here because I don't want to be moralized. I don't want to be, what was the word I used before? I don't want to be, yeah, moralized by brands. You know, I will think what I think. Thank you very much. And if you can deliver value, I will happily be a customer. And it's not very difficult. Like, deliver something of value. And if it doesn't quite work out for people, just be really nice about it. You know what I mean? That's how you're going to be successful.
Yeah,
So that's my feeling about the intent is I don't believe it anymore, you know, and I think like, I think, what do I think? I think brands are doing it way too much, way too much. They shouldn't be involved in that at all. And so the war is a really interesting example. I've got Russian friends, you know, they are really in a bad place because of the way that their country and they are being presented in the world right now.
yep,
Morally, I think that's an issue. Like the well-being of people is something I'm interested in. It's an
yep,
abomination what's happening in Ukraine, but
yep.
but you know. So here's another instance. I'm talking too much again. Upwork. I use Upwork occasionally, and it's like so they came out and they're like, okay, we're not going to have any Russians or Belarusians on our platform anymore. And it's like, okay, so you now have made the decision to take away the income of these individuals who have absolutely no bearing on what's going on the geopolitical
Yeah,
global environment. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know if I see these things more because I'm sensitive to it. That's what I think maybe. I still use Upwork. I'm not going to stop working with the people I work with because the people who run Upwork are idiots. Like
yeah,
it's not your place to make a moral standpoint on my behalf because I'm a customer. Actually, give me something that's valuable and give me the support if it doesn't go right, and I'll be your customer all day, every day, and I'll be really happy. What do
right.
you think?
Okay.
I feel like now I'm being polled.
Ah,
Uh-huh.
I think. Look, I think there's a place for culture, brand personality, brand purpose, and
Yeah.
I think there's also a place for a minimal viable audience, and you might not be it for them. And if you decide to actually be bold enough to say something, there's consequences that you might lose audiences. Um, what do I think? I think it's very risky if brands were to side one way or the other.
Yep.
I do know of some agencies that were actually doing the opposite. So they were looking to outsource work to Ukraine
Right.
to help them.
Yes.
Conversely, Russians need help too.
100%.
Um, and I had this conversation with someone recently. Like the word oligarch, why does it have a negative connotation to Russians? You know what they really are? They're Russian entrepreneurs.
Yes.
They're Russian businessmen.
Yes.
But someone decided to actually just invent a word called oligarch and put some negativity around it and bring it out to the world. And we all are using it. Why is there breakfast, lunch, dinner? We can survive with one meal a day. But why are we at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock going, I'm not really hungry, but I should eat. Yeah, I should. Let me go out and get something. The hell does
Yeah.
that mean? What's that all about? Um, so yeah, so look, I commend brands that decide to take a side. I think it's very bold, and I think there's consequences to it. And that's it, really. So yeah, how do I feel about it? I'm indifferent, to be honest with you. So yeah, I might
Okay,
see it
good.
through different lenses, though.
Yeah, the point is we haven't strayed. It feels like we strayed a long way away from the point. But the point of this
Sorry, man.
talk to people. Do you know what I mean? Just talk to people. You
Yeah.
know, and there is really is no danger in that unless you really don't care. You know, that's where the danger is. Like, don't ask questions that you don't want to hear the answers to. You know, that's really important, I think. But I think the key to this is just talk to people. And I think that's why you're doing such a wonderful thing. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because I think if people really understood what the silent majority were thinking right now, we'd be living in a very different and a much better place. You know, I think if corporations were actually interested in what they were thinking and wanting, they would be much more successful. Small businesses have to be interested and have to care about what they're needing and wanting, and they are more successful if they do that, I think. So that's the key to this conversation, I think, is talk to constituencies, talk to markets. That is, for me, that's the key to successful marketing. Is literally about how well you know your market. And if they're talking to you, then you know them better than other people. How are we
I
doing
think
for?
it's common sense, right? It's common sense. I think that's the other thing we're trying to put across.
Yes. And the thing is, we've only got to a point where we have to have this conversation because the world isn't being run on common sense lines right now. You know, it's a corruption that we've got to. And I think what you're involved with is a readjustment. So, how are you fixed for time? Because we've gone for an hour and 20 minutes already, but I still have a couple of questions that I'm really interested to
No,
know
that's
the
fine.
answer
We
to.
can keep going, man. The phone, yeah, that's all good. It's cool. I haven't had the text, so it's fine.
Okay, super cool.
Yeah,
So,
let's
the
go.
question is then how, and you kind of touched on this earlier, but how do you communicate with these people in a way that you get a response? And also, how successful has this been? Because you've had like fantastic, like ridiculous levels of engagement.
How do we communicate with them? Openly, simply, and straight to the point. To be honest with you, there's not much rhetoric. We just tell them what we believe in, what we're all about, and we get straight to the question. There's two sentences before we ask the question on the email, and that seems to be enough for people to want to click in. Um, I think it's the way we communicate. That's what it is. A lot of Gary Vaynerchuk, your Tony Robbins, all these big brash people, they have a different delivery. Now, some of their content might be good, but because of the delivery, it's kind of noise. I think it's our delivery. That's our USP. I think it's the conversation that we have, the tone that's quite different than research agencies. We don't come across as an organization. Engagement rates, we're averaging between 600 to 1,000 participants every 3 to 4 or 5 days. Big studies are being done based on a sample pool of like 200, 300 people. And that takes, sometimes a lot of weeks and months to do. I would also argue the validity of the people maybe responding to that and, data that's coming out of that small pool. Um, but I'll be very honest with you. We haven't put a finger on it, man.
No.
It could be a few factors. We're just being as honest as possible, as open as possible, and it's carrying a tone of voice of the collective group at Snapple. That's really it, man. Again, we're not going by some formula. We're not following. We None of us have researched how to ask questions to people. We will just ask them the way we do. We don't take the client's question and run it verbatim. We
Yeah.
take the client's question and put the snap poll voice on it, and then ask we ran a poll earlier this week that for a client, and it was does pineapple belong on pizza, right? And the
Yes.
second was basically trying to identify loyalty to this pizza franchise. And the question that we had was, what's the one thing your pizza shop would do that you'd want to give them a big hug for?
Yeah, it's really cool, man. And I think there is some formula, like you ask like four multiple choice questions, and then there's an open question So it really is like like you say, a 20-second operation.
Yeah, but we're averaging up to about 3.5 minutes with responses because people are just typing away on the last question, which is great. So cool. It's
So
awesome.
how do you analyze that? How does all of those comments get read? There's 1,000 comments now that you need
Oh,
to read.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. All of them get read. So again, we are not statisticians. We are not research peeps. We are just pretty good at connecting with, our fellow Australians. That's essentially with an ethical purpose. We take the data and we pass that on to the client. They
Yes.
can read that however they want to. There might even be a research department that can really analyze that. We also break the data down by gender, location, and age as well.
Yes.
So, yeah, one of the questions we ran during lockdown was, how are you going? And one of the responses was, I'm struggling. So there was an opportunity for government to actually identify potentially the age group. Is it older people? Are they female skewed? Are they younger? Stuff like that. What can they be doing a better job with to try and reach those people? Because at the moment, that ain't happening, man.
No. Yeah, it's not happening. I think you're doing an amazing thing. I think you're doing a really amazing thing, and I think you have found a way through like people's cynicism. You're just giving them a voice. That's what people. Everyone knows that people want to be heard. Like you say, they want to be loved. They want to be heard. They want to be. What was the other thing?
Safe, safe.
Safe. 100%.
Yeah, 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 man.
Cool. So I think you answered the question, who do you work with, several times, and how do you add value to their lives? Have you got like a boiled down version of your recommendation for people who want to be getting more of this value for themselves, maybe in their business? I think you've kind of said,
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would. Here's what I would say. I would say I think more than ever before, there's an importance to build your tribe. Now's your time to build your tribe. And your tribe is the smallest viable audience. It's not the biggest. Yeah, you just want to find like-minded people, and for goodness sakes, love them genuinely.
yes,
Um, you know, uh, and I think honestly, that's what it is. Because when you love them, then they will be honest with you. They can be part of your journey. They can, you can start your own snap poll to your own community. But I just think moving forward in the future, look, I think there's going to be a whole bunch of different communities out there that we're all going to be part of, and empower them to be part of, to be a change maker that will make them feel better by being part of your tribe. You know, they
I
can look
know.
to the left of them, to the right of them, and there's someone as geeky or as funny as them, and celebrate that for goodness sakes. We don't need to conform. Give them that comfortable and safe space to
Excellent. So
build.
now we've got our headline. So our headline is now is the time to build your tribe and love them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Good. Okay, cool. So the last two questions. What should people read?
Oh, good one. All right. Uh, the best book of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Okay.
I think I still use a lot of those the wisdom in that in everyday life. Give me one second. Um, Also, this one's pretty good too.
The E-Myth Revisit. Oh, two classics, man. Two absolute classics.
So
That was,
yeah,
yeah, that was my base text when I started my business, the E-Myth. That's an astounding piece of writing. Okay, good. So we've made it all the way to the end. Have you
yep,
enjoyed this experience? Has it been all right?
it's been great, man. And speaking of polls and asking questions, you're amazing at this. You've got a really really interesting fluid way of asking questions, and it's been really engaging, and I've enjoyed it. It's been challenging some of my points, which I enjoy as well. But I think above all, it's just been it's been refreshing because it's conversation I haven't had with many of my peers. We've gone down a different angle, which I enjoyed, and I hope your listeners have enjoyed and learned something from as well.
Cool. Thank you very much. The thing is, I am interested and I care. So I think that it's the same. Do you know what I mean? It's like I am interested and I care, and
It comes,
good. I really hope it does, and I really do hope. I mean, the next mission is to start chopping these up and make them really accessible to people. But I really do care, and I really hope. I've interviewed 58 people. Everyone's got 20 years experience. There's 1,000 years of experience in these conversations now. It's like, I really hope, I need to stop being so rude about the corporations. I really hope YouTube shine a light on this and get it to more people, because it will. And we'll be making the effort to make sure it does as well.
Before we go on the last, because I am very interested in this. You touched on the thread of creativity with everybody that you pretty much spoke to. What else have you uncovered in terms of personality, in terms of purpose, in terms of what drives them? What really fascinates me is what drives people, what motivates them. I find human beings fascinated. So if you've got 50 odd people that you've researched, in this context over an hour, are there a few different aspects, that bind them all together?
I think there are. I mean, I haven't thought about this, and I think what I want to call this is, I want to call this like the Legion or the League of Marvelous Marketers or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Because those are the people I've found. Everybody I've spoken to has been a really nice person. Like, firstly, everyone I've spoken to has been really committed to wanting to help people. And everyone I've spoken to has been really engaged in their aspect of what it is that they're doing. So really kind of like focus people. So I think, though, that would be like the common threads. Because when I started, I've got an issue. I think the big issue in marketing is no one really understands that they have to do it in the first place. No one really understands that being in business is an exercise in having customers profitably. And the way you do that is by being good at sales and marketing. So nobody understands that. When they do come to understand that and they go to market, then they get robbed. Like, the average lifespan of a digital marketing customer in London is 3 months. So nothing happens in 3 months. So it's a complete waste of time. So people not understanding it, valuing, knowing that they need it too. And then the other issue is that really, really poor suppliers, when they actually go to market, like people who actually don't deliver value. And annoyingly, I haven't found any of those. So the 58 people I've spoken to have all been absolute giants, in terms of wanting to help people and being really capable of helping people. So I would say that those are the common threads, the other common threads. But this creativity is like a really strong thing. Like, everybody came to marketing after they did a creative thing kind of first. It's interesting.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Well, I would echo that you have all of those characteristics as well, and I think that's why you attract it too. So
I hope so. Maybe
cool.
You're too nice, Ranil, is the problem. You're too nice.
Not at all. No, not at all.
Okay, cool. So that makes this question easier then, which is, who are you going to throw under the bus? Who do you think might enjoy to have conversations like this with me?
Yeah. So there's two guys that stick out straight away, and I think you're going to have amazing conversations with them if they're open to it. Justin Tam is one of them. He's worked his way up from being a junior at an ad agency in Melbourne, and now is pretty much one of the decision makers at Victorian Government Department of Responsible Gambling. So his department is all about educating Victorians on the risks of gambling and potentially also advising them of where to seek support if they need to. Some very interesting insights I think you'll get from him, which is quite different than marketing, but I think it will also impede on a lot of leverage and a lot of similar threads, I think. And again, it comes down to consumer. So I think there might be
100%.
some might be some insights there. The other one is the ambassador. I call him the ambassador of esports in Australia. So his name's Sean Callanan. He's basically, well, one of his businesses is called Sports Geek, and he runs his own podcast as well. Uh, very far-reaching network of people that he's got. He ran some amazing Zoom sessions during 2020 and 21, where he had, the general manager of stadiums and everything sports related.
Wow.
Tennis Australia was on it, and we were all kind of having open conversations about what our concerns were, where this is all going. Was very, very interesting, and I think you'll have an awesome convo with him. He's also all about forward thinking, future planning, all that kind of stuff. Anticipating what's coming, and the world of gaming as well, and how gamifying products might be on the rise. So I think you might have very interesting and very different conversations with both of them. So let's hope that happens.
Man, that's the best pitch I've ever had for speaking
Oh,
to
really?
people. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is what I've always wanted, because now I can chop these out, and these can be like these can go into the introduction. Do you know what I mean? That would be really cool. This is what so and so said about you. So, what Ranil said about you, man. So thank you so much. So the way it works best is if you can put together like a LinkedIn introduction, and then I will pick it up from there. But man, they sound like two really, really cool conversations.
Do you want me to look? I know they're on email. How about I just do an email intro?
No, email is as good. Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll just do that. They'll get onto that. So I think email is definitely the protocol. So let me.
Okay.
And I want to give them a bit of a rundown. Let them know, because I wanted to do this first.
Okay.
Just so I can tell them the value that they'll get out of it as well.
Super cool.
I've done a few of these, but none have been as engaging and entertaining as this. So yeah, well done, man. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks.
I think it might be something along the lines of, we uncover the secret to, what can we use in terms of curiosity to get them to know that the answer is listening.
Yes.
That's I think because a lot of what we said was revolved around that, which pleased me as well in terms of the lesson.
Brother, have you written a book?
No.
You need to write a book called The Answer is Listening.
That's a good one, yeah.
Those might be the four most perfect words I've ever heard. Like, the answer is listening.
And then the subheading to that is, what was the question again? So it's saying pretty much all of the answers are listening. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's cool.
That's really good, man. You have to write that book. 100%.
But isn't it interesting, right? Because when you go on a date, what do you do as a guy? And I'm assuming you're going to cut all this out, right? But what do you do? What do you do when you go on a date? You ask questions of the lady.
Yeah,
That's how you win her heart. You don't talk about yourself. If you talk about yourself, it's a train wreck.
Yeah, I mean it is, but people do that as well. I think, like, you hear, like, you say someone was again who's just talking about himself all the time. Do you know what I mean? So they do. So it is a train wreck. I'm not cutting this out. This is staying in.
Fair enough. Okay.
Okay, super cool. You're an absolute legend, man. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. What we'll do is we'll say goodbye now for anyone who's listening, and then I'll hit the stop record, and then we'll say goodbye like normal human beings.
Cheerio, mate. I enjoyed it too. Thanks, man.
You're an absolute legend. Thanks, man.
See you, bud.